and Facebook this afternoon. It's been a little minute since Coach Smith has been live, but I'm back. I'm back doing some things, excited for 2025 and going to the next level with Love the Game 24_7 on YouTube and Coach Smith 27 on IG. I appreciate you, great folks out there. It's all about trying to help you young athletes and parents navigate through this recruiting process. Because hey, it takes some navigation, it takes some know-how, it takes some all that. But we'll get into that more in a minute. But I want to thank you guys out there for joining me, however you're joining me. All right, Steph, I see you. I see you, Steph. I appreciate you, homie. Coach Smith, Love the Game 24_7. Appreciate the family out there joining me and helping grow this channel, because it should be growing faster, and I hope it, and plans are to get this YouTube channel blowing up, right? With Love the Game 24_7, because I know it's a lot of young athletes out there, male and female athletes, that need some training and some coaching up on their recruiting and how to gain their exposure to these college coaches out there. And so be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure you view the videos and everything that's out there on the YouTube channel, okay? Be sure you share this information, right? I got some things I'm working on for 2025. And so, but appreciate you guys joining me this afternoon. Briefly, I won't be long. Just want to give you some feedback, man, with this, this 2025 playoff, college football playoff picture and how it's looking. And we've had some exciting games and all that stuff. But yeah, we'll talk about that, talk about recruiting and what you guys need to be doing, what you need to be thinking about, what's going on with some of you guys. And, if you got questions or comments, while I'm live on Facebook and YouTube and IG, I'll try to answer some of your comments or questions. But, I really just want to be sure I let you guys know, hey, I'm back at it. I had a great trip out in Dallas, as I shared that I was heading out to Dallas for that bowl game during the Christmas holiday. And that went very well. I shared some of the pictures and videos and things a little bit on my IG. Thank you to my son, Jay Smith Jr., Jay Smith II, for doing that and hooking his dad up with doing all the great pics and video. I've gotten a lot of great comments about how good the videos and the pics were and all that stuff. So I appreciate my son doing that. So I had a business and pleasure trip when I was out in Arlington and Dallas area, or business and pleasure, pleasure and business, whatever you want to call it. It was twofold. Got to see my grandkids. It was great being able to see my grandbabies and spend some time with them. And also being out there at the bowl game with the young men that I met out there and parents that I met out there, and had the opportunity to talk to them about recruiting for their sport. But pretty much, as I've always said, recruiting is recruiting. I don't care what sport you're in, whether you're male or female. You need to get started by your middle school age years, right? It's always been that way. That's always been that way, right? We just have a lot of new toys and bells and whistles to help us do that. And as I've always shared, as I shared with someone on Twitter yesterday, I was on with a coach, because like I said, a lot of these coaches in college and high school, whatever sport it is, everybody's on Twitter, everybody's on X, right? And I commented to a coach because he was, coach just shared a comment, which he was right. You want to spend more time with your teammates in whatever sport you're playing and get to jail so you can get to know each other and spend time with each other, but he was saying, you need to do that probably more so than you do with your personal trainers and all that stuff. And I told him, no, I agree with what he said about athletes need to spend time with each other. You're a family, that's how you you grow success in a program and whatever sport it is that you play. That's how coaches grow that. But as I shared with him, there's nothing wrong with an athlete getting with their personal trainer or whatever it is, or for their position or whatever sport it is, to help them develop. Because I was a product of a many before me at my high school that had a high school coach that did nothing at all to help us. He did more to hurt us than he did to help us. You have some coaches for whatever reason. That's why I have this YouTube channel. That's why I got into coaching. So when my kids came through and played sports, that's why I did that. And not just for my kids, but for other kids. I didn't want kids to have to deal with the issues that a lot of brothers that came through before me at my high school, that we had a coach who was lazy when it came to helping his athletes go to the next level. And we were in Florida, where I grew up. We was always one of the top schools in the area, in the state. Periodically, it was always a top school in the state. But that coach we had, that particular coach, not every coach is that way, but we have a lot of them that are. They're just going to be real with you. I'm just going to be 100 with you. You have a lot of coaches that don't help their athletes, period. I was just talking to a young lady the other day saying the same thing at the university where I work. She's a student at my university, and she's a student worker working in the coffee cafe there. And she was a volleyball player. And she shared to me, just conversation, just shared with her what I do outside of what I do at the university, working in financial aid for 25 years. That how her coach in volleyball only helped certain kids, and this young lady, you can look at and tell she was athletic. And she kind of lost her love for playing volleyball. She went off to a community college briefly to play volleyball, but kind of lost her passion for it. But coaches have power to help push their athletes to do great things and big things. Doesn't matter whether they go off to play major college or pro, but they should go off to college and help pay for their education. But she's paying her way through college right now. But she was in a small town in Illinois where she went to high school, and just said her coach was just kind of like particular about who she would and wouldn't help. And to me, that is totally, absolutely wrong. You help whoever wants, to help, and you just be genuine and be honest with them. If they have an opportunity to play at the next level, you let the college coaches and recruiters do that when they go to camp, right? And when they send out their stuff, and but just her sharing that story, just it irritates me when I hear stuff like that. When I hear a coach not helping all their athletes who desire to go to college, and it's a good way to help supplement paying for that education, because it's tough out here. All right, I'm just telling you, it's real out here when it's trying. I'm in my office on a regular basis, on the phone, emails, constantly, for students looking for scholarship money for academics, whatever the case, trying to find some way to help pay for their education. And when you have a talent in a sport, you want to do everything you can to use that gift and talent. I don't care if it's music in a band, dance, cheerleading, or whatever. That's another form of helping you get your education paid for. And as a coach, you need to do everything you can to help encourage that and to help them develop. So as I shared with that coach on Twitter, is, hey, there's nothing wrong. You as a parent, you better do your part. And as an athlete, you better do your part. You just can't rely on spending time with your teammates and coaches. You got to do your part to be the best of you, right? So you can help your team, right? So you can help your team be successful in whatever sport you play. You better take some time out to help develop yourself. And especially if you are getting some attention from college recruiters, or you feel like you have the ability to play that sport at the next level, at whatever level or division it may be, right? So I just want to just share that briefly, because it's that time of the year, okay? Especially if you're in football or any sport, doesn't matter. It's that time of the year where you got to be on your business, right? And so I just want to briefly talk about, man, this playoff picture. We've had some great college games, even in the NFL playoffs. That's going to be getting started today as well. But man, wow, 2 great games. I know a lot of people say, oh, the SEC is not in it in the championship. But to me, that's the great thing about all the stuff that's going on in college sports, that I don't always want to see the same teams all the time, right? We need that parity. We need that, uh, that type of activity that's going on in the college sports world today, right? We need to see that the change up, right? It don't need to be Alabama all the time, or USC, or whatever, and whether it's football or basketball or volleyball. As I was watching some of the volleyball during the holiday break as well. That's the great thing about sports, and a lot of people think it's because of NIL and transfer portal. And I mean, I'm not saying there's some things that don't need to be fixed. There's always things that we could do better, but I still love the excitement in college sports. To me, that has not changed, not one bit. Coaches, you got to coach up your kids. There are a lot of kids that are not caught up on NIL money. Okay, they're making their money and they're glad to make it, but they love the game 24/7 and they're putting out. And we've seen that in these playoffs, right? These kids are putting out, right? And I watched some volleyball during the NCAA tournament as well, and those young ladies are putting out, right? I watch lacrosse ever since my son was in college at Boston College. I got hooked on lacrosse, watching the BC ladies, Boston College ladies, and those girls. When I watch those games with different teams, they are putting out. Okay, and it's great they're getting NIL. But I think the love for the game in college, high school, whatever, is just as exciting. Coach need to get a little smoothie, homemade smoothie, healthy. But yeah, this playoff picture I think it's been good. We've had two great those Final Four teams that's been in it. The Oregon playing Ohio State was a great game. The game last night against Texas was great. I mean, it could have gone either way, right? Could have gone either way. And it's just exciting to see, even Penn State, they could have gone either way with them against Notre Dame as well. Okay. Penn State had every chance and opportunity to win that game. And it comes down to the little things. And so that's why I tell you, young athletes, that's why, yeah, you do need to spend time with each other, but you also need to spend time with honing your skills, getting that extra work put in, with a trainer or a coach, right? And so there's nothing wrong with that. And especially if you aren't getting the help, like I had to deal with coming out in high school, and it still does happen. So you better take personal responsibility, young athlete, parents, take some personal responsibility. Hold your high school coaches accountable, young lady, in your sport, to help you with your recruiting. Parents, sit down and have those conversations. Let that coach know, hey, I have a child, I have a daughter. She's a baller in her sport, and I'm expecting to know when college recruiters are asking about her or asking about him, right? You have every right. If your child is putting out to help that coach in their program at that high school, you guys got to work together, right? Everybody needs to work together, right? You need to respect the coach and how he runs things or she runs things with their program, but you also need to have that coach needs to understand that as your child is playing in that, for them, because you could be somewhere else if you so desire. Okay, that they need to understand that, hey, I know my child has a gift and talent to be able to play at the next level, and these are our expectations. Or if these expectations can't be met, if I can respect your rules and guidelines as a coach, how you run your program, then I expect you to respect my guidelines on what my expectations are for my young athlete, for my young lady, for my young man, or we'll go somewhere down the road where that's going to be mutually, respected, right? Between coach and parent and athlete, right? Everybody has to be on the same page when it comes to that, right? Especially when you have an athlete who it's obvious that they have the ability to go play at the next level, at any level. I don't care what level it is. They have an opportunity to help supplement their education, because that's what it should be about more than anything. It should be about that more than NIL. NIL is just icing on the cake if you're at that level. Everybody's not going to be at that level, out of the gate. You may end up being at that level once you get on the college campus and you worked hard and you get your opportunity to be in that starting lineup. So that's the blessing now, right? That we didn't have when I was coming up. So just because you may not have that coming out of high school as a top recruit, you can earn that. You can elevate yourself to that. And a lot of these young men in these playoffs that we've been watching have done that. Okay, I know a couple of young men, I think on the Ohio State defensive backfield was struggling. Yeah, hey, he balled out and has been making picks during the playoffs, right? So we saw some games. Arizona State, man, they had every opportunity that they could have possibly been in it deeper, against Texas. But it comes down to the little things, those mistakes, and that's why you got to do your homework. You got to be mentally focused, right? You gotta lock in, man, because it's just crazy how that pass that the quarterback threw to the running back out the gate when Penn State was playing Notre Dame. That could have been all the difference right there if that pass was just thrown up, and was a catchable pass. Now, as a running back coach, I train and I would do when I would work with my running backs, I would do bad ball drills. Even with the wide receivers, I would do bad ball drills because that's how I was taught. We didn't just throw good balls, we threw bad balls. I was also coached to say, hey, you running good routes, is you make sure you do your best to run good routes and expect the bad ball. So when you snap your head around and see that ball, be ready to adjust and expect the bad ball at times. Not all the time, but hey, just be aware that a bad ball may come, and I need to make sure I run my route like I need to run, and I get my head around so I can make an adjustment and still make a catch, even though I need to help my quarterback out sometimes, and sometimes my quarterback needs to help me out. But I still say, hey, that running back, you got to do everything you can to make that catch, man, because this is it. And you got to have that mindset coming in and tell yourself, I got to be prepared for anything and everything, right? And it wasn't a good throw, but the running back still was able to get his hands on it. But I'm not saying that Penn State running back coach doesn't do a bad ball drill. He may, you know, but I still think the ball could have been caught. It wasn't the best. It wasn't, it was probably a low percentage catch, of course. And the quarterback has to do a better job of helping his running back, his receiver, who he was throwing to be able to make that catch, because that was for sure touchdown for Penn State. That could have changed the momentum for them to win that game against Notre Dame, right? And so both quarterbacks made some mistakes, right? And had their situations, but Notre Dame was able to bounce back, right, from Penn State's mistakes. Penn State, man, if they would have scored that touchdown where that quarterback didn't throw the good ball to the running back, that could have made all the difference. But because they only got 3 points as opposed to 7, man, I tell you that's what this stuff comes down to. It comes down to inches. It comes down to who's um, um, who's prepared, mentally prepared. I see your question, Coach Pearson, on IG on my Instagram. Who my thoughts on star players, or star players sitting out bowl games. I mean, hey, it's these guys' choices. I don't think I would. The type of person I was when it comes to wanting to play ball, I probably would have taken that chance or risk. And I think it does depends on where they may have you rated, because these kids can find out where the NFL has them rated as far as their draft grade. So now, if I'd had a high draft grade, I can say that now. But if I had a high draft grade, it's something you have to consider. Or you do like what D.R.I.V.E.N did for all his players. They got all his players. They had the insurance policies. So hey, you do the insurance policy. You get a Lloyd's of London insurance policy on your athletes. The school can do that. Dion had University of Colorado do that on behalf of all his seniors who have these draft grades, whatever the draft grade was. He took insurance policies out on them. It was said during the game that it was one of the highest paid insurance policies for a college to do for their players, for their seniors who have draft implications or NFL opportunities. So that's what you do. So somebody like Dion stepped up as a coach and said, hey, I'm going to get insurance policy for these guys. So if something does happen to them, they're covered. They'll get millions of dollars if they got some sort of injury that wouldn't have allowed them to be able to go at the next level. So that's, to answer your question, Coach Pearson, my homeboy who I grew up playing with out there in Iowa, that's, to me, that's your answer, but it's up to that athlete And if you've got a very high grade, Travis Hunter, he played, he's going to be a top 5, top 10 pick, making millions of dollars, right? We know that. Even his son Shador potentially going to be a top 10 pick. So it's up to these guys on whether they want to play in that bowl game or in a bowl game or not. I just know me, as much as I love playing football, I want to be out there with my boys. I want to be out there running around, running that pill, and I may have taken that chance to play, because that's just me. But like I said, it is something that these young men do have to think about, is if they have a high draft grade on them, to opt out of playing in a bowl game. And they shouldn't be faulted for doing that. It's a business decision, right? We know that it's about business. It's always been about business. We just know more now. We just have more information now because of the World Wide Web that was created, right? And social media and things that get shared. And we got former players that are sharing things. My son, Jay Smith Jr., just jumped on my IG. But yeah, it's just, it's some things to think about. But I'm telling you, this playoff picture, and since Jay, little Jeff jumped on IG, he can attest to this. I am so excited for Coach Ryan Day. Ryan Day came to our house on several occasions when he was recruiting little Jeff. So I've had the pleasure to know him personally when doing the recruiting process, or got to know him somewhat in Coach Ryan Day. So I'm very excited for him and this opportunity for Coach Ryan Day. And I'm telling you, to be able to have that young man recruit my son. I remember when Lil Jeff was being recruited. I tell you, like, a real quick story. He was being recruited by Boston College when Coach Day was the offensive coordinator, and he and Coach Fitzpatrick, Coach Fitch. Coach Fitch was with Skip Holtz at University of South Florida at one time before going to Boston College with Coach Day as the QB coach. And so initially, Coach Fitch came down to CCC, Florida Central Catholic. Shout out to CCC and Coach Harvey. They came down. Coach Fitch came down. And I'm telling you, I was doing a lot of this work behind the scenes that my son knew very little about with his recruiting. As a dad, there were things that I was doing. I would send out emails and videos with, Lil Jeff's huddle highlight, that he put together and whatnot. So I was doing a lot of grunt work behind the scenes as well to help him gain his exposure with a lot of coaches and making calls. Sometimes I'd be at work, I'd get on the phone and call. I never had a problem calling anybody. And it's times I've had a conversation with Coach Fitch when he was recruiting Lil Jeff at CCC. And I remember when they first came down initially to look at Jeff and put eyes on Lil Jeff to see, how well he threw the football, how he looked, his height and all this thing, his size, and being a coach at CCC as well. I'm having conversations with them, and of course they know I'm his dad, and they're very interested. And so, and when these coaches come, they always come with, well, yeah, he's top on our list, blah blah. But we got some other kids that we're looking at. I'm like, I hear you. I hear what you're saying, but I know what this one can do. Right? I know what this young man can do. Because I've been around ball all my life since age 7. And so I just remember having those conversations with them prior to them coming out to the school. When they got out there, meeting them and greeting Coach Day and Coach Fitch when they came to put eyes on them and watch him throw the football on the field one day after practice. And he performed very well. And I remember the conversation with Coach Day and Coach Fitch, had with Jeff, like, hey, yeah, we're going, they leaving from St. Petersburg, where we live, leaving Clearwater to head up to Georgia, somewhere I think in Georgia, to see another QB that they were recruiting. So they was like, hey, yeah, we'll be in contact. We really like what we saw, blah, 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 and, shook our hands or whatever. And then I know when we got to the coaching office, Coach Day and Fitch, further explained, yeah, hey, we're going to be heading up the road. We're going to put eyes, but we really like what we saw in Lil Jeff at quarterback and throwing the ball today on the field. My nephew Josh, shout out to my nephew Joshua Smith. He was catching the balls for his cousin. And so, and I remember Jeff asking, like, yeah, Dad, like, hey, you think this are they serious, blah blah. I'm like, yeah, they're serious. They're not going to take their time to come down here and put eyes on you if they're not serious about recruiting you. he had some other offers and whatnot. But his first offer was with Coach Aranda, that was at uh, Wisconsin, um, and I think he's a Baylor head coach right now. That was his first offer, but it came as a defensive back, and not as a QB. So we had some other interests with some FCS schools and some other Division 1 schools as well. Um, but this was like really going to be his first real big offer that was really getting the ball rolling for him at quarterback. And so I remember them just saying like, yeah, we're gonna go up the road, blah blah. We really like what he saw, and he really did well when he threw the ball after practice that day for them. And I just always told him to be prepared, like I tell any kid when the recruiting is going on. He really shined and looked good. And so, and I remember Jeff was just concerned about, yeah, man, I'm like, hey, like I said, these guys, these coaches, this is their livelihood. They're not going to just come here and put eyes on you and spend money to come fly down here from Boston if they're not really serious about you, right? And so, and Coach Fitch has really been, hitting Jeff, little Jeff, and keeping in contact. And I'm telling little Jeff, yeah, make sure you respond and keep in contact with whoever. And and so that evening, we talked about it, all excited and everything. It was great, whatnot. I know little Jeff was just, like I said, he was just a little nervous, like, man, I just hope this is legit, blah, blah, blah. And he gets a phone call, and it's Coach Day. As they're driving up to Georgia to see this other kid, they had time, of course, to talk. I knew little Jeff knocked it out of the box with his workout for them that day at practice, after practice. And he gets a call, and they in Boston College, Coach Day and Coach Fitch offered him on their drive up. Now I wasn't surprised, you know, but I'm just thankful, to be able to have that experience and to see Coach Day um, having the blessing of what he's doing at Ohio State, and just to know him personally, because he was, I think he was a great coach. Lil Jeff didn't get a chance to play for him at BC because Coach Day went to coach with Coach Kelly and for the Philadelphia Eagles and then the 49ers. So Lil Jeff didn't get the blessing of playing for him. But I remember when Coach Day came back to our house to let us know that he was taking the job to the NFL with Coach Kelly, who's also now his offensive coordinator at Ohio State. Um, but I remember him coming and taking the time respectfully to come back to the house because he wanted Jeff to stay committed to Boston College and thought it would be good for him since Coach Fitch was still going to be there as a new OC in his place while he took the opportunity to jump into the NFL prior to coming back to college at Ohio State. But I just wish little Jeff would have had the opportunity to play for him. But I just have a lot of respect for Coach Ryan Day and and the man he is and the person he is. So it is very exciting to see that he's getting this opportunity finally to get into a national championship. You know, I just wanted to share that story. But this is how this recruiting goes, guys. This is how Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7 is connected. I know I can put a call in, to Ryan Day, if there's somebody I know that has some talent, that he'll take my call because of the relationship of recruiting my son. You know, that door is always open, right? Especially when I know, and I wouldn't waste my time calling him and trying to contact him unless I know there's a kid that really has it, or if there's a kid that's being recruited by Ohio State that I know of, right? Because the connection of people I know that I would reach out and say, yeah, coach, you need to get this kid, right? I know this kid's family, blah, 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 whatever the case. But this is how all this stuff works, right? This is why I do what I do, right? This is why I get excited about trying to help any young lady or young man. I got connections with young ladies like Nicole Tunsil back at Lakewood High School, who's the head coach and athletic director back at our old high school, who was all state, all top in the nation in basketball. Played at Iowa for the Hawkeyes, went overseas and played ball. I got Anthony Lawrence, who I grew up with, who played at Alabama and University of Miami in basketball, along with his little brother, Pat Lawrence. There's connections, guys, and you use all this stuff. One of my teammates I played college ball with, Johnny Brown, played with Deion Sanders in high school, right? He's at every game for Colorado pretty much. When I give JB a call, give Johnny a call and say, hey, I know you at the game because I know Dion always take care of his childhood homeboys, right? He always kept that connection and that closeness with his homeboys that he grew up with. And if they desire to be at any game at any time, he takes care of everything because that's the type of person he is. Everybody, sometimes want to hate, but Dion is legit and genuine. So I'm excited to see Coach Day because he's genuine, he's legit. Hey, nobody's perfect, but when you got kids that love to play for a coach, whether it's at the high school level or college level, that's what it's all about, and that's what it should be about, right? When you get done playing at your high school, you should always desire to want to go back to your high school. If you're a college athlete, male or female, and you're handling your business, putting your high school name on the map, putting yourself on the map, you should always want to go back and share, right? Where you came from and help those ones behind you to make their road a little bit easier, right? That's why you ball out like you ball out, because you want to make that door easier for the young ladies and young men that are coming behind you in your sport, back at your high school, back in your city, right? Back in your county. You want to rep, right? Always want to put your city on the map. Always want to put them on, right? So that's what it should be about. And that's what we were about, because we knew we didn't have a coach in high school that was helping us. So all the guys that were older than me, like older than my brother, would come back to our high school, man, and let us know what time it was and what we need to do and how we need to prepare, how we need to get ready. We were always back at our high school, connected like that, back at the Wood, Lakewood High School, Hollywood High. That's what we call it in St. Petersburg, Florida. But I always appreciated the OGs coming back, letting us know, this is what y'all need to do, because this coach ain't going to help you. As long as he's here, he's not going to be the one to help you get in school. So you better take care of your business on your own and make sure you prepare yourself, right? Because you're not getting the help that we should be getting. Okay. And so we appreciated that. And without them, coming back and letting us know and tapping back into, the high school, us younger ones, we wouldn't have known that. So they always kept us on a straight and narrow, right? They set the stage. They balled out at East Kentucky, right? They balled out, Louisville. They balled out, Savannah State, FAMU, wherever else they went, Pat Terrell, Notre Dame, Tom Carter, Notre Dame, William Floyd, Florida State. He's one of the first and few to ever win a national championship in college and win a Super Bowl with the 49ers his rookie year into the league. That's Lakewood. That's St. Petersburg, Florida, right? Those guys would set, now those guys, Tom Carter and Floyd, were younger than us, but we set the stage for them, right? We set the stage for them, and they took the torch and ran with it and did their thing with it, right? I took the torch from my older brother, who was a few years older than me, and ran with it, right? And made sure we told the William Floyds and the Tom Carters behind us to take care of your business, all right? In case that coach we had was still there. Now, they had the blessing of that coach was gone by the time they came up, but and we had Coach Niners, who took care of business as the head coach, and all those boys, John T. Edwards, who else was it? Billy Swain, Tom Carter, William Floyd, those guys went and represented after us, and they carried the torch. Just throwing out some names from St. Pete, from my high school, Lakewood. That's what it was all about. And and that's the reputation we had at Hollywood High. That's how we rolled, because it was tough on us. We weren't getting that help, in football, right? It just that's what it was. And a lot of us have gone on, and that school still has a strong name with Corey Moore back there as the head coach. A lot of kids. I just saw something on Twitter that they shared. Every senior that played football got a Division I scholarship out of this high school. I'm just telling you, it's something in the water down there in South St. Pete, right? In the Burg, in P County, right? If I can hopefully take a chance one day on this live and share about how many college athletes in football and basketball, right, have come out of that high school, have come out of South St. Pete, have come out of P County, Pinellas County, we call it P County, that have come out of the Burg, right? And still today, you got young man. I had opportunity to coach his three older brothers, set of twins, an older brother that's coming out of Toledo this year in Newton, Jerwan Newton, Johnny. We call him Johnny because they all got these jers with them. I get them all confused. But Johnny second-round draft pick for the Commanders out of Clearwater Central Catholic from St. Petersburg, P County, South St. Pete. His brother is coming out as one of the top MAC wide receivers, right? Out of Toledo, coming out for the NFL draft this year, right? I mean, you can look on pretty much about every college, major college at the Division I, FCS, and Division II level. You're going to find someone from South St. Pete, multiple out of that area, right? Because many before them have carried that torch and put the city on the map. And it constantly just comes out. And it's great to see that. And it's in other places as well, but I'm telling you, if I did a story, or when I get a chance to do a story on my hometown and what has come out of there, in football, and especially football and basketball, because of the just guys just carrying that torch prior to and passing that thing on, right? Setting the stage. I always used to tell my older brother, man, you need to make it easy for me, so you need to go ball out. And he did. He balled out, made things easier. Coach Lovett, started the football program at University of South Florida. He's a St. Pete product. Coach Davis, who started Clearwater Central Catholic on the map, who I coached for, got my start in coaching he played with Coach Lovett, St. Pete product, right? Rick Kravitz was our defensive coordinator at Lakewood. His first coaching job, him and Coach Davis. Before Davis went to Clearwater Central Catholic, you got Coach Rick Kravitz. Went on to coach at FAMU. Was a white defensive coordinator at HBCU at FAMU and turned their program around. Went on to coach at NC State, right? Went on to coach at I forget where, another school there in Ohio. It'll come to me. But then he came to South Florida with Coach Lovett to start University of South Florida's football program and put them on the map, right? That's South St. Pete. They're the old Dixie Hollands. They call it Hollands High, but they call it Dixie Hollands back in the day. So that's why it's so important for you guys to do what you need to do and take these opportunities, because of the connection that you're going to get, right? This connection, with Coach Ryan Day, and excited that he's having this opportunity to go to the national championship. That man sat in my house on several occasions, recruiting my son. So I know him personally, excited for him. Some of you guys may have the blessing of someone sitting in your house recruiting you one day, hopefully. You young athletes, right? And watching you on TV, just, doing some great things. And so, like I said, I had the blessing following an older brother, one of my older brothers who played at every level. I had the blessing of playing at every level, and I have a son that's playing at every level. So I think I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. That's why I get on this YouTube channel and try to share with you guys. I don't come on here to knock coaches. I want to help some coaches. If there's some coaches that don't get it, that need to get it, that if you want your program to grow, stop putting kids in college. I don't care what level you put them in. Help them get college scholarships to help pay for their education. And if you want your program to blow up, you start doing that. Be successful with doing that. Making sure that your kids are whatever, you're male or female, I don't care if you're in football, basketball, track and field, doesn't matter. Get your kids in school. Put your athletes that have the ability, push them, get them scholarships, and watch your program blow up. That's what Coach Davis did at Clearwater Central Catholic. That's why I wouldn't coach with anybody else before my kids came through high school, because he was a coach that put kids in college. Whether they played for him at his high school or not, he was going to help anybody he could. He would help kids that he were good, that he had to play against, that weren't getting help from their coach. He would do everything he can to help you get in school. And that's what he did. That's where I learned from. And so I'm taking this time to go viral, because I know we have millions of athletes. And a lot of you all don't know how to navigate through some of this, and especially when you're dealing with a difficult coach who may not be putting in, the effort to help educate you about the recruiting process, or just leaving you out there on your own to figure it out. Well, you got Coach Smith and Love the Game 24_7 is here, right? And you need to share this information, right? Because enough is enough. You guys got to get started early, because one day maybe we'll see you in a playoff situation for volleyball, like I was watching during the holiday break, and we got our college football going on, and baseball and softball is getting ready, as we start the spring semester. We have our spring sports is getting ready to get kicked off. We got basketball going, baseball and softball. Those things are going. Track and field, another sport I love. And you talk about something that'll make a man or a woman out of you. Run some track and field. It's gonna make a man or a woman out of you, right? And you guys got to start thinking now, especially you football players, some other things you need to do to help hone your skill, right? To get you developed. And one thing I'll share with you, I'm working on right now for you football guys. Like I said, I was out in Dallas for the offense defense all-star game. That was a great time out there. I really enjoyed it. Coaching those young boys out there and helping them and the parents. I shared the little pic that I had before doing this, starting my live, where I had a table out there and I was talking with parents and athletes about what they need to do to prepare themselves to get an opportunity for the next level. You gotta love the game 24/7 and put some work in, right? You coaches, you got to put that work in time with your young athletes to help them develop. If you want your program to be successful, right? You gotta put it in. I know a lot of coaches are teaching and doing other things where you got to designate somebody to come on and grab a hold of it, and help your young athletes. But and around late March, I would be doing here in North Carolina in Wilmington. I'm going to be doing a development camp, and so I'll be sharing more about that and posting it and sharing it. And so I don't care whether you're in North Carolina or not. Late March, look for Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7. And I believe offense defense is going to be in partnership with me to put on this football camp here in North Carolina. And I'll have information out there on how you can register. It's going to be limited because we want to be sure. So when I put it out there, you better jump on and get signed up because it's going to be limited. I'm pumping it up to the middle schools here in the area, and the high schools and the Pop Warner leagues here in the area. And if you want to get for football, like I said, right now, you want to get your young athlete on the right, going in the right direction and getting themselves developed, and also getting them to help them gain exposure. But they need some development in their position, right? There's some development on who they're going to be competing against for these scholarships. So I'll be sharing more about that. I'm doing that right now in the works. And so you need to get on board with, if you're a football athlete, to get in with Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7 in late March to get here for this football camp. So if you're in middle school up to high school, you want to get signed up because it's going to be limited opportunity. So I'm just letting you know here first, right? I'll be putting a flyer out. I'll be sharing more on lives as I go live and telling you how you can register once I solidify that. But it's going to be in late March because I'm telling you right now, there are some rivals camps coming up. And here's what I want to share with some of you guys, especially you football players, but any athlete in any sport. Before you go to these types of things, you need to come to something like what I'm doing, a development camp, to teach you what you need to, because a lot of you guys don't know what to expect when you go to these things and you don't perform well. And some of these things will rank you kids. And that's why I say you need to go to these things at a young age so you can figure out how and what you need to do. So when you get older and get into high school, you knock that stuff out of the box and you put yourself on the map. But if you don't get some development about what you need to do before you go to these types of things like rivals and 24/7, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to hurt your ratings. You're going to hurt your opportunity to get truly looked at, or you're going to delay it some until you get to where you need to be. But I want to help you avoid those types of things. And I know Rivals has their camps, some camps. I know the camp date that I'm doing mine is either the 15th or the 29th. It doesn't conflict with some of what the Rivals camp is doing, but I just saw them post that on Twitter this week of their rival camp that is coming up. And before you go to something like that, like I'm telling you, you better come to something like what I'm doing, because my goal is to help you. When you go to something like that, you already know what to do and you know how to perform. And when you go and you perform like you need to, after getting some development with Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7 camps, you go to the Rivals camps, then you go to the 24/7 camps, you go to the college camps, already knowing what to do. You have to do some things. You have to put in some work before you go to these things. Because if you don't put in the work, if you don't get taught up or coached up on how to perform at these camps, when you go to these camps and you're trying to get your exposure and you go and you don't perform well, then you're going to hurt your recruiting chances. And I don't want you to hurt your recruiting chances. I want you to knock that stuff out of the box. I want you to get put on the map. But you got to have some things that you need to know and do before you hit that recruiting thing with these rating things. And it's okay to do some of those rivals and the ratings things. I'm not saying, that you don't do it, but you better go. You need to go to those things already knowing what you need to do. Because if you go there green and you haven't done any work prior to going to these things and it doesn't go well for you, then now some of you guys need to understand maybe why you're not on the map, why you're not getting ranked, because you didn't go there prepared to perform well enough, because you didn't do some things that you needed to do, right? See, I'm going to take you through some things that I know they're going to take you through. And you don't have to worry about getting ranked or rated through me. My goal is to help you see what you need to do and then what you need to do to correct them. Because then you're going to leave from my camp and go do some of that stuff on your own. Now I'm gonna take the opportunity to start training some people myself with football and even with some track, because that's what I know. I know football. I know track, and I know some people who know these same things, right? I used to coach back at Clearwater Central Catholic with Coach Sean, who was a former Olympic athlete, and did training himself. And so, but I was a track athlete. So there's some things I know personally from my own personal experience and things that I learned with Coach Sean, who was an Olympic athlete that I coached track and field with in high school. But I'm going to do this football camp because too many times I see kids go to these camps and you don't perform well and you hurt yourself. So I want to do this camp to help set you up for success. So when you do go to rival, when you do go to the college camps in football, you already have performed. You've already been practicing these things that you need to practice. You've already got really good at it. So when you go and you got eyes put on you now to determine whether they're going to recruit you or not, you've already had that opportunity at Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7 coming to my camp and what we're going to take you through, right? And how, because too many times I see kids trying to run a 40 and they have a terrible start. Your start is everything. Now you got to build up some strength and speed and some other ways to know how to run that 40 time and run that 40 the right way. But if you don't have a good start, unless you just a burner and can run, doesn't really matter too much about your start. If you really, if you're just that guy or that girl, when it comes to speed, some of you guys have speed or need to be taught how to run correctly. But if your start is terrible, you're going to hurt yourself. And a lot of athletes I see hurt themselves because they didn't know how to start, right? They didn't know how to, they didn't prepare themselves. Thank you guys for joining me on IG. But a lot of you athletes don't know how to prepare yourself properly in your sport, especially when it comes to football. Football is a tough sport. Technique wise, I watch stuff all the time and I see where some guys, I'm like, he's been coached that way or it's been allowed to happen. And, watching some footage of the game again from last night and from the Penn State game, and even from some pro games that I watch, I go watch some of the other shows that review footage, and it's like, man, technique was bad. Not that he's not a good athlete, technique was bad. When we're in cover 3 and you got deep thirds as a corner and a middle safety, and I'm not worried about underneath stuff. I'm worried about deep stuff. That's why we call it cover 3. And some of you guys don't know how to, do cover 3 properly. It's deep thirds. It didn't say shallow thirds. Cover 3 is deep thirds. You're shallow when you're in cover 2 as a corner. All right. But when we're in cover 3 as a corner, we're deep. And you should never let a receiver get behind you or even with you. When a receiver is even with you in cover 3, you're done. especially if they're a good receiver. You're done if he's even, right? So you always keep your eyes on the QB in cover three, and you get deeper than the deepest man in your zone, from that hash mark to the sideline, in your zone, deep at the corner position on either side. So I'm deeper than the deepest man. So that means that I get deep and turn my shoulders and get downfield. I don't stay squared up in a back pedal. I have to turn my shoulders and keep my head turned, looking at the QB, getting deep so I can see with my peripheral vision that wide receiver is still behind me, and I'm deeper than them. But just stuff like that, just to just give you an idea. So that's why in late March I want to do my camp before you guys get on this summer recruiting trail, hitting colleges, because you need to do that. 1-day camps, right? But you want to go and you want to shine and put yourself on the map. But if you go to those things and you don't show what you need to show when you run that 40 time or when you run that short shuttle in your recruiting class, because they know where you probably should be. Nobody's looking for you in middle school to be running a 4.3. All right. That's not what they're looking at. They might not even care about time so much. What they will care about is who ran the fastest time, whatever that time is. If you're a middle school kid, right? Were you the fastest middle school kid there? That's all they care about. Who were the fastest middle school kids? And they see the potential, right? When you're in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, right? Especially 7th and 8th grade, were you the fastest one in your position? Whether you're an O lineman, whether you're a linebacker or a running back or a receiver or quarterback, they're not worried so much about speed at quarterback. But if you have it, great. They want to know how well you can throw the ball, how accurate you can throw a football at that young age. And if you are getting some private training, if you're a QB and you're not getting private training, you're already behind the 8 ball. Okay. So you need to have some private training, not just with your offensive coordinator, unless your offensive coordinator and QB coach does private training. If they don't, then you better find somebody. My son had a private coach from 7th, 8th grade all the way till he got to college. And so you're hurting yourself if you don't have some sort of private training at, especially that position, any position today, really. You need to learn how to run routes properly, right? You need to learn your technique as a DB properly, linebacker, running back, O-line, D-line, right? You got to have it, guys. So I just want to come on here and just talk about that. Like I said, a little bit about how the playoff picture is looking. I'm excited for the national championship game with Coach Day in Ohio State. It's going to be a good one. Notre Dame is not going to be a pushover. That's for sure. And that's one thing that I'm really, like about how the playoffs have gone. It hasn't been blowout. The game has been tight. And that's what you want to see. You want to see competition. And guys, you got to understand, let me just say this. The reason why I'm looking at doing this camp too is to teach you young athletes, your first competitor is yourself. That's who you compete with first. You compete with yourself first by getting up on time, doing what you're supposed to do, right? Regularly, getting your grades, getting your being a great teammate, being at practice on time, and getting there early and staying late, getting your training done. And when you go to these camps, you got to compete with yourself before you worry about competing against somebody else. You compete with your own times. You compete with how well am I doing in my technique. That's your first competition, is yourself. And when you don't go through a drill right, you got to compete with yourself first. You got to clean up whatever you need to clean up so you can compete with yourself and make less mistakes. And when you go through your drills at these camps, that's your first competition. Your second competition is that young man or young lady in whatever sport you're playing. That's your next competitor. Your first competitor, though, is yourself. You have to compete with yourself to get better, to do better, so you can get yourself scholarship opportunities. That's your first competition, is me. How well did I got to do better than what I did last time. Or I got to repeat what I just did, because what I just did was really good, and I got to be consistent. And I need to remember. Some of you guys don't dream enough. I remember my dad used to tell us, man, sometimes you need to sit down and be quiet and just close your eyes and just visualize how you want to do things. And when you take time, sometimes it's just, in a quiet place and visualize, especially a day before a game. It wasn't a day of the game. My dad used to say, man, Night before a game, just chill. But visualize some stuff. When you go to bed, dream about what you want to do. And I remember sometimes when I did do that, was consistent about doing that, man, how good some games went. Sometimes, I did better. Most times I did better in the actual game, but because I took time to dream and visualize, how I was going to run the football and avoid contact. I would visualize myself on certain plays, running certain plays sometimes. Right? So those things are good, but you got to compete with yourself first. You got to remember when you did do something well, right? How to do it again. And if you did do something not right, how not to do it. Have a bad memory, right? And not do it again, but have a good memory when I do something right, correctly. And that's for any young lady, young man, in whatever sport you play. You got to compete with yourself first. You got to prepare yourself before you go to these things that really mean something when it comes to scholarships. But if you don't put work in prior to going to these things, you're not going to do well. You're going to come up on something that you have to do that you haven't even practiced for correctly or like you needed to. Right, running that short shuttle. I mean, but we used to kill that stuff, man, days before going to camp or or playing or whatever. I used to train, man. When I was pursuing pro ball, because I knew what they were gonna, the drills they were gonna take me through. When Mark Dominic, before he became GM at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he scouted me when I was coming out of college, and I knew the things he was going to take me through. And so some of the guys like my older brother and Ernest Givens and some of the other guys that I knew had already, been there and done that before me and playing and taking me through like, no, this is what you better get down. You better practice. You better practice your 40 in your start. You better practice your short shuttle. Right. You better practice that. You better practice on how to stay low and get out and turn your hips and get going to make sure that short shuttle is at that 3.9, 4.0. Right. And that 40 is at that 4.2, 4.3 range. And that's what I did. But I didn't run a 4.2, 4.3 just showing up, and I didn't put any work in like I need to put work in. No, I ran 4.29, 4.3 because I put work in days before, weeks before, constantly repping, repeating that same movement. So when I got to Tony Dungy and Mike Schuler looking at me, when I went to work out for Mark Dominic when he was a scout, and did what I needed to do. Right, did what I need to do when I became an undrafted free agent with the Houston Oilers. And when I showed up and the guy was picking me up from the airport, all he could say was, "Man, you must have really impressed him," because all he talked about was your 40 time and being another Florida kid from where Ernest Givens was from, and the Kevin Gilbright, the OC, was talking, and the head coach was talking about how fast my 40 time was, because they were the ones that worked me out. I think it was Jack Pardee, Coach Gilbright, and the GM. I can't think of his name. And matter of fact, I found out some years later the GM was a Boston College graduate. He passed away some years ago, but he was an awesome gentleman, older gentleman, for them three, and I killed it. But it was because of the work that I put in, that I knew that I need to put in, because of what I was told that I need to do by my older brother and Ernest Givens and some others that did it before me. Right. And so I practiced that stuff like clockwork, had it down. So when I got in front of these very important people that decided to offer me a contract, I took care of my business. Right. I ran the 40 time that I needed to run. Right. And I was an all-purpose running back that was moving from running back to wide receiver going to the Oilers. But because I had that skill set to be able to run routes, because of how I practiced during the off season with my older brother and Ernest and many others, I was prepared to make that transition from being full-time running back to a wide receiver in the run and shoot offense of the Houston Oilers. All right, so could run routes, could catch the football, had great hands, but it took work and repetition. So just to say this, as I share more information about this camp coming up in late March, to give you an opportunity to help you develop. before you go to these college camps and these rivals and these other things, and to show you some things that you need to work on with your trainer, or even on your by yourself or with teammates, to help you get these things down, because they need to be like second nature to you without you even having to think about it. You just go do it and knock it out of the box. And now you're getting the exposure that you need to get to help you get a scholarship. So whatever drills you need to do, young lady, young man, for your sport, you need to find out what it is. So before you go to these camps to be seen by the decision makers, you better have put work in, with a trainer, by yourself, or coming somewhere like what I'm doing for football to help you develop. So I can help break it down to you what you need to do. And I got guys who play college and pro ball that'll be there helping as coaches at every position. All right. So that's what it's going to be. And so you want to get developed. Mom and dad, if you want your athlete to get developed, register, get ready. And, I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't love the game 24/7. Still to this day, love it. I can't play anymore, but I sure can do these things. And I love it just as much as I did when I played ball. So, but hey, get ready to watch some NFL playoffs today and tomorrow and Monday, when my Bucks go against the Commanders. The Newton gets to come home with the Commanders and play against his hometown team in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. With, I know, a bunch of family and friends will be there watching, and that should be exciting for them and for him, playing against his hometown team in the Buccaneers, being he's a St. Pete kid playing for the Washington Commanders. That is an awesome thing. And I'm sure the CCC family will be there representing as well. This young man coming home in a playoff game. Wow. It's awesome. So I'm out. Appreciate you guys joining me on IG. Coach will be going live again with some other things to talk about recruiting. But you need to be sure you get, when I release this camp information, you get registered and sign up so you don't miss your opportunity to get developed. You hear me? And so I have my son here who's playing pro ball as well to be here to help out. He can help out with quarterbacks and receivers. That's what he's been doing. But I look forward to seeing you guys next time. And be sure, like I said, you on my YouTube channel, you go subscribe. Help grow Coach Smith and Love the Game 24_7 on YouTube. Let this thing go viral, man, and let's get you young kids out there an opportunity to fulfill your dream of playing at the next level, whatever it may be. All right, y'all have a great weekend. Peace out. Until next time.